Welcome to the Friday edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 133, the Halloween edition. And yes, we're wearing our scary mask right now, but that's how we get our candy. I'm Kevin Carlson.
And I'm George Conger. And today is October 24th, 2014.
Welcome to Frivolous Friday. What? Okay. George and I try to keep our Monday news really hard-hitting, Wednesday news a little, more topical. Friday is kind of frivolous. Whatever story we want to talk about, make it fun, enjoyable, make sure it's Anglican. And George and I said, do you see George? He's looking good. George has a new camera. We've been saving up for a while, and George got himself a new iMac. He's not using the old iPad or iPhone for his camera, so he has more crispness. His face isn't as pale, and you can see definition to his hair, and he still has the same smile. Good job, George.
Well, I have always modeled my personal grooming style on that of Dick Cavett.
Yes.
That sort of nice pasty look and brushing my hair with a sponge. I think that's really what the audience is looking for in a modern presenter.
Yes, of course. And so George and I are trying to have the same quality cameras back and forth, and we're finally able to do that. Back to Friday Frivolous News. George and I sat down on Monday, and if people don't know, there was a synod in Rome where they wanted to talk about family in the church and the Eucharist and marriage and same-sex relations. And the Pope called together a synod of cardinals and bishops he hand chose to sit and talk about these. And it was momentous, and George and I are going to talk about that. But on Monday, George and I sat down, and how are we going to present this? Obviously, it's hard-hitting enough for Monday news. We could certainly talk it on Wednesday, but there's no way we could really do anything until Friday because we didn't know how to talk about this and make it relevant or really figure out what the Pope is trying to do, what Rome is trying to do, what is the future of Roman Catholicism. I think we've kind of figured it out, and let's look at it this way. We talked a couple weeks ago that Billy Graham, if he were to do it all over again, he would be an Anglican. He said, I wanted to be an Anglican evangelical. I love the liturgy. There's a lot of stuff about the Anglican Church that is very appealing. And I'm like, well, Pope is, close to his retirement years. Maybe he thinks he wants to be an Anglican as well, an Anglican evangelical. And he's taking a look at the last 20 years of Anglicanism and says, we can do that here in Rome. We can have little meetings where we set up and change our doctrine. We can have characters like they have in the Anglican Communion, and we can do what Anglicans do. Now, George and I were talking about this, and says, Kevin, I think they want to be Episcopalians. And I said, I guess that does make more sense. They aren't just going for the middle road, they're going for the left road. So George and I want to talk a little bit about, first, George is going to talk about what exactly happened over in Synod.
Even though there have been claims that this is the most transparent synod ever, it is very, very opaque because the Pope has not spoken with clarity. We've had a great deal of false statements and media spin. But the long and the short of it is a group that claims the backing of the Pope has sought to undo some of the dogmatic statements of the Council of Trent and the First Vatican Council, even Vatican II. They are seeking to bring the Catholic Church into the modern era by jettisoning the Church's traditional moral teachings on human sexuality and marriage.
Well, let's back up. Vatican I said the Pope is infallible and marriage is undissoluble.
Trent said marriage is indissoluble, and that was reaffirmed by Vatican I, and Vatican I also gave the Pope infallibility on matters of faith. And right now, they are following almost a self-contradictory pattern of we're jettisoning the indissolubility of marriage. All the stuff that caused Henry VIII to be excommunicated and, the whole Protestant Reformation in England to take off, well, maybe that was a mistake. And
How many Anglicans had to die before we came around and said our teaching is, well, whatever. Keep going, George.
and redefinition of sin, and that, we cannot condemn homosexual practices because there's some good in them. Well, there's some good in everything. So basically, sin is no longer there because sin in itself cannot be condemned because there's some good aspects of sin. It's just, well, we need to begin by the fact was that these 200 plus cardinals and archbishops and bishops were invited to present written papers, which they then were to summarize in 4-minute speeches. And halfway through, the secretariat chosen by the Pope, led by the cardinal from Budapest, from Hungary, gave a summary. And the summary included statements the church is going to change its teachings on homosexuality and welcome gay people and gay blessings and gay unions and so on and so forth. Well, not only did this contradict things that John Paul II and Benedict XVI said were unchangeable, it didn't represent what actually happened. Look at it this way. Either the Vatican, 6 people who worked on this are the most effective, efficient bureaucrats who ever existed, able to condense 200 speeches into a 6-page document in a day's work over a weekend, or they pre-wrote what they were going to say. And after this was released, Cardinal Pell of Sydney led a counterattack, followed by Cardinal Burke, saying, this is nonsense. We did not discuss this. We have no intention of changing church dogmatic teaching on marriage, on human sexuality. And by the end of the conference, they adopted a final resolution where the Pope's position, so says Cardinal Casper, was repudiated. Now, this is the first time since the Middle Ages when we have anti-popes in Avignon. We had 2 popes that the cardinals were publicly repudiating positions taken by the sitting pope. And their arguments were that this was close to, the Pope was close to spouting heresy. It was that momentous an occasion. And the heresy that they were spouting was modernism. I mean, I really felt like, Kevin, I got one of these, we gave these out to my congregation. These are called pledge cards. And I'm going to send one of these to Archbishop Forte and Cardinal Casper and the Pope, because if they're going to be Episcopalians, they need to do it right and fill out their pledge cards before the beginning of November. They want to bring the church into a conformity with modern cultural norms, this minority. And it's going to create a bloody civil war if it's not stopped now.
One of the biggest things that church leaders want to do is they want to make the church more relevant to society. Here in the Diocese of Connecticut, they're losing churches left and right. They're closing them down. They're turning them to mosques. This is happening in New York. It's happening all over America. Well, it's happening all over the world. Your cathedrals and your churches they're not serving people anymore. They're empty. What they used to be in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s aren't there. And the idea is, well, we're not there in people's lives because we're no longer relevant. And I got to tell you, that's not the problem.
And it's not entirely true. It may be the case in Europe and in parts of North America, and it may be in parts of South America where the Catholic Church is hemorrhaging into Pentecostals. But in Africa, the Catholic churches, and Asia, the church is growing by leaps and bounds. Now, these are the people that Cardinal Casper says we cannot take any notice of what they're saying. The successful Catholic churches we must ignore and be more like the Episcopal Church, which really is, if I were Catherine Jefferts Schori, I would think that this is the greatest thing that has happened in my archiepiscopate, because she has proven to be a model to the Catholic Church of how to go forward. The next step are women priests for the Catholic Church. We jokingly, she was listed among the 100 most influential Christian women of all time in a recent, I think it was Time magazine or something. And, they may be right.
Well,
Because if Pope Benedict is seeking to model his church on her church, she will be one of the most significant women religious figures of all times.
let's look at this from a church historical perspective. Can you look in history at any church in the last 2,000 years that wanted to become more relevant that is in existence today? And I can't. I see churches that tried, like the Episcopal Church, parts of the Lutheran Church, the United Methodist Church. All these churches have no members anymore. They've split. They've gone away. They've shriveled up. And seeking relevance is not the mission of the church. It's to make disciples. And when we forget that, we find ourselves with empty pews. And I think over the last half century, we've really lost that mission. Jesus did not call us to go make Christians. He did not call us to go fill our churches. He did not call us to do so many things that we as churches think our role is to do. We've lost the model of discipleship, and we're paying for it. And so our answer is, well, let's be more like the culture that people love. Let's be more like the internet. Let's be more like cable television. Let's be more like the gay bar down the street. It didn't work, and it's not going to work, and it's going to make you becoming relevant, ironically, for a church, makes you absolutely irrelevant.
Yeah, Kevin, yes and no. Churches that are faithful to the doctrine and gospel of Jesus Christ are doing very well, thank you very much. I am able to remain and be a proud Episcopalian, and I know proud Episcopalian
Oxymoron.
has connotations.
That's an oxymoron, but go on.
Because, frankly, it doesn't matter in the slightest what happens in New York or London, because according to the Articles of Religion, the church is that visible congregation of believers gathered together. Now, it matters to me what happens in Orlando. But for me, my church, which is growing and thriving, which people are coming to a saving relationship with Jesus Christ, which is active in the community, helping the lost and the poor and prisoners, man, that is doing God's will. And churches like that, whatever denomination, Lutheran, Methodist, Presbyterian, Pentecostal, they will thrive because they have their eyes fixed not on the world, as you say, but on Jesus Christ. Now, it's harder for the Catholic Church because, whereas for me, it doesn't matter in the slightest what happens in New York. It may be mildly embarrassing, but it doesn't impact me. For my Catholic colleague down the street, if the Vatican goes the way the Episcopal Church does, he can't ignore that because of the hierarchical structure that they have. We are not a hierarchical church in that sense as Anglicans. We are a biblical church.
So, where do we go from here? Well, George, I want to be clear again. The Pope has not said verbally where he stands on any of this. He's given lots of interviews on airplanes where the papal office has had to say that's not what he said. So we really don't know where the Pope stands on this. So this is why it's come all the way down from Monday, Wednesday, we're on Frivolous Friday, because we really don't know. Now, we know his actions. We know the actions and desire of some of those in Synod. We know that there's going to be another Synod in a year from now. And that's going to be the troublesome point because at some point, Anglican ordinariate just becomes useless, George.
Yes, one of the casualties I foresee, if things continue in the way they're headed, is the Anglican ordinariate. What is the point of jumping from the Church of England or the Episcopal Church to a church that maintains the same doctrinal teachings that you found so abhorrent in the church that you were reared in? The ordinariate it's taken a torpedo below the waterline, and I don't think it's going to thrive under these circumstances.
However, this is a great day for orthodoxy.
This is a great day for Oprah Winfrey,
No.
Did you say?
I'm sorry, mic problems. This is a great day for orthodoxy.
Oh, orthodoxy! And for Oprah Winfrey, too.
Yes.
Every day is a great day for Oprah Winfrey. The Orthodox have been saying for 700 or 800 years that the claims to papal uniqueness, papal primacy, that the Council of Trent and Vatican and other such councils called by the Pope without the Orthodox are just local councils, really just the Italian church making a decision. Guess what? If the Pope goes through with this and repudiates statements made by the Trent and by Vatican I, the Orthodox will be proven right. Now, I can't grow a beard, so I'm not going to ever become an Orthodox priest myself. But
I'm 1% there. Go on.
but it does give ammunition to the Orthodox charges of papal arrogance. That the Pope is one of many bishops exercising jurisdiction, not the first bishop. For Anglicans, frankly, this is actually a good thing because it allows us to relax and watch other people fight for a while, knowing that if we're not going to solve our problems in the short term, so let's turn our attention and watch the neighbors fighting.
Well, it is that, but just 2 weeks ago, having the Pope on your side was money in the pocket. Pope Francis sent his regards to the new Archbishop here in the Anglican Church in North America, and that's the one thing that made all the papers. Pope gives nod to North American Anglican Church. Now, is that still as relevant as it was before? Yeah, today, but after the next synod and the next synod and the next synod, as we watch Rome erode a little, I don't know how relevant the papal's nod is going to be. Well, yep.
Kevin, Barack Obama gave his congratulations to Foley Beach.
Who?
And Barack Obama, President of the United States.
Okay.
And that's sort of like went in one ear and out the other at that meeting in Atlanta. And I'm afraid that the Pope, I'm not saying he's out of the way of Barack Obama, but he has suffered a tremendous drop in the esteem that people have held for him who are not within the Catholic Church by his actions at this synod.